Welcome to Star Citizen and the Gentleman News. And also this week there were some news that keep us on the ground. And so, as usual, this one is here with some hints and ideas of what the news may mean for us.
Let's go for a little ride.
He did the steer and drive on you, didn't he? He got that from me.
The general direction of the driving physics on the ground is to move more in the direction of a simulation based on the respective conditions of the terrain, so away from the previously partly arcade-heavy driving behavior. However, it was emphasized that no detailed simulation is planned, but rather a focus on this direction under the premise that the vehicles simply feel right and believable. Furthermore, there were more pictures of the Nova tank as well as another Cyclone variant, the Cyclone MT, which also goes in the direction of ground combat balancing with anti-aircraft missiles and a gun. So we have a suitable ground vehicle for almost every scenario, so we are getting closer and closer to the requirements for an effective ground combat or a combination. And what you can do with the new combat vehicles, the existing ships and weapons, as well as the gun presented in the last week, I have packed you again in a small trailer. And I don't know about you, but for me there are currently some things pointing in exactly this direction. The corresponding driving physics, which we already have for ships, is therefore also necessary for ground vehicles. Of course, this also requires basic mechanics and simulations, including the calculation and implementation of the driving physics. Depending on the surface and the vehicle, acceleration, traction and driving behavior on the different acceleration forces are simulated and adjusted. Depending on the tires or even the chain drive, as in the new Nova tank, we have very different effects on the respective surfaces and our progress. And we already have a broad fleet of vehicles with different systems for making progress. Interesting is also the fact that we have not seen hover vehicles like the Apoa Nox or the Drake Dragonfly here. No new hover vehicles were mentioned either. However, I could very well imagine vehicles with these technologies. I'm thinking of the Nomad landing gear, for example. A combat vehicle with hover technology would have other advantages and disadvantages and would fit wonderfully into the Star Citizen universe. In the area at the user interface as well as the refinery terminal, which so far still has a rather unfinished impression, there were also improvements and bug fixes. The refinery terminal has a new start screen and bug fixes, actually not worth mentioning, but there was more in the direction in other areas. Once again, the UI in the area of mining has been expanded, and we can expect more information and graphical improvements here. More detail about the new mining modules, as well as the known consumables, we have so graphically visibly, which makes our work easier. Also, the scanner display gets an update which also improved the mining. The environment at most stations, as well as in predominantly industrial areas, undergoes a kind of downgrade. However, this is not meant negatively, because we get a more appropriate look, which makes the areas appear more credible. After all, a mining station with more plants and seating than the launch of New Babbage really wasn't appropriate after a moment thought. And by the way, performance is also saved. There have been major improvements in the area of lighting. These are already very advanced, and with change to the light sources, a completely different lighting mood is created. Also, new light switches, which came with the Mercury Star Run in the game, can also be found in the rooms, which allows us to find our very own setting and adjust it accordingly to our own wishes. Because especially with lighting and shadows, a lot of game atmosphere can be created and changed. Here is especially interesting the possibility to freely position light sources, and through this to create a correct shadow cast, as well as a change in light intensity. And such a portable light source would of course be an optimal upgrade for every cave scientist or constellation owner. Again, a minor graphical improvement, but with great potential for the coherence and believability of the game world. In the hospital on New Babbage, there was also further progress to see. In addition to the extensive entrance area, many other areas were shown and addressed that one would expect in a hospital. Here is less a direct playful use of the background, but rather a credibility and comprehensibility. This we can expect: operating rooms, waiting rooms, warehouses, laboratories, and various sections for specialists. Besides, these areas also offer the possibility to expand the medical gameplay step by step, or even implement new mission types or quest givers there. But also outside the hospital, in the connection areas to previous structures, new areas were created. To what extent these will have a directly gameplay reference, however, remains to be seen. Visually, however, we will certainly get many new areas worth seeing. The outposts are also progressing further and further, and in my opinion very quickly. The colonial design of an outpost shown here looks like something out of Star Wars and already looks very coherent. The designer's current task is to move away from a ship design and think more in the direction of a house or building. Because in a house it is not entirely necessary to achieve absolute functionality or to save as much space as possible. But what has been shown so far already looks advanced and appealing. The proportions are appropriate and the different areas look coherent. I'm looking forward to see the first moving images from such a small base. And to close the circle again and to come back to the ground combat focus, for such battles, buildings and facilities are also necessary, which can serve as target points, cover or spawn locations. That's why I found it interesting that the garage was mentioned again, which is supposed to be equipped with an airlock and an additional hatch. The anticipation of own bases or NPC settlements has once again grown strongly. And finally, there was a design idea which was shown in the connection with the graphic developments around pyro. Visually, already very nice, but I found the mentioning of pyro more interesting. But as always, I'll look forward to your comments and opinions. I say goodbye until next time. See you in the verse.